Welcome, everyone. This is lesson 4 in this series that I'm doing, and today, as you can probably tell, looking in front of you, we're talking mainly about specials. At the end, I'll have a few tips for each of the bosses, but generally, bosses all follow the same simple rules, so we're going to be spending a lot of this time on what makes this game so special and what makes it so challenging. Specials. I already used that word somewhere in there, but that's okay. What makes specials such a challenging element to the game is that the way that they behave is so radically different than other enemies in the game and from each other. The right special or the wrong special, depending on how you look at it, spawned in when you're already in a bad situation can take you from just barely holding on to instantly losing the game. A trapper that no one heard coming, trapper over there, or one of these plague bombers diving in on a group of unsuspecting teammates. All of those things can absolutely turn a game on its head in an instant. And generally, clutch situations or situations where players are already down, specials become even more impactful. So how do we deal with specials? Well, there's a couple of things that I do personally. First off is I turn my volume way up. I've got a kind of a attuned ear to it at this point, but if you're a newer player, make certain that you are, if you can, use directional headphones and tell Stephanie to not talk over you because it's really hard to hear when she's talking. We'll wait.
I've seen it.
Great. So being able to hear the specials, because they all have their own audio cues, which will hopefully show in these next clips here, that is a great way to get early information that there are specials on the field. If you are caught off guard by a trapper or a hound or a sniper just suddenly puts its laser on you and you didn't notice it before, that's going to be a lot more problematic than knowing that there is one in the field and playing around corners and things like that so that these specials have to come to you. So that is the first tip I would give, is definitely use directional audio headphones if at all possible, and make certain that you're listening for those cues. And we'll be going over what those cues are in a second. The second tip I have is to be aggressive. The best defense against specials is a good offense. We want to be eliminating them as a utmost priority, and you'll see that in my endgame stats is that I almost always have the highest specials eliminated count, because to me, every time you let a special use its ability, you are rolling the dice for someone on your team, including you, to be in a situation that it's going to cause a problem for them. If you let a trapper shoot their first shot and they miss, that's okay. They missed that shot, but they'll be back and they'll shoot again. And what if next time you're next to a wall on your right and you don't notice it and you dodge and you get trapped and you get beat to death? That sort of thing can very easily happen. So the less time that we let specials exist, the less shots or fire we let them lay out, or fire grenades or gas grenades we let them lob into the environment, the easier the time is. Obviously, they're going to respawn, but just keep killing them. Like they have to come within our range to shoot at us and throw at us. So we should be able to keep killing them with utmost priority. So that is the second thing I'll say about specials. With that being said, let's get into talking a little bit about specific specials. And the first one I want to look at, and we're going to do this in sort of a clip show format. I'm first going to talk about how to manage certain types of specials, and then I will show you a clip of that in action in gameplay, because there's so much that I can say here, but you really need to see it in action in order to understand what it looks like when it's being done with other threats going on. Because obviously, if you give me a trapper in this open, this open simulacrum here, she's never going to get me. Okay, she might get me, but very rarely. But if I have a trapper and there's hundreds of other enemies in the same arena, suddenly the area becomes much more confusing. And we're going to have to listen really hard and focus really hard to pick her out of the crowd and know what to do in a pinch. You're really talking a lot today, huh? All right, so the first ones I want to talk about are our lovely Chaos Hound here. We're going to focus on the two simplest AI enemies first. I guess the Charger is also pretty simple, but the two that tend to jump at us and have some sort of deflecting ability. So that is the Chaos Hound. And in order to do this, we're going to need to hear the Hound. Isn't that lovely? All right. So the Hound is a really simple enemy. As soon as it locks onto me, because I'm going to turn up my invisibility, it's going to jump at me like that. Now, you heard that it has that really, really loud sort of snarl that lets you know that the dog is in the process of jumping. So oftentimes, I'll hear that noise before I even see the dog, especially if the dog has been pretty sneaky getting to me. And the trick to shoving dogs, and here he's a little bit loud. Be quiet. The trick to shoving dogs backwards and getting them off of you, you can just dodge and let them go past, but that gives them a big window to run away. So watch this. So he's going to continue moving pretty quickly, and he'll get to another position, and he'll attempt to jump again. However, when I shove him backwards, he spends a second shaking his head there, and that's a good enough time for me to close the gap. So we want to be doing the shove on the dogs, if at all possible. When we shove the dog is based on that sound cue. When dogs and the next enemy we're going to talk about, which is the poxbursters, jump or lunge, their hitbox grows massive. So it becomes really easy to shove them. Like, you see how that dog was nowhere even remotely near me when he was shoved backwards, which again. So a normal enemy, if I were to attempt to punch them at that range, they wouldn't be hit. But when these two enemies that are designed to be shoved backwards in their animation do their thing, their hitbox becomes huge for shoving, and they get shoved backwards. It also lowers his stagger resistance a lot when he's in the air. If you ever try, like for instance, if you ever try to shove a dog or shove a poxburster who's targeting a different ally than you, and you try to shove them off of their path, they'll stumble a little bit, but they won't fall. But when you shove them in that final animation, obviously it's a little bit different. So that is the number one way. You're going to listen for that snarl, and then as soon as, basically from most distances where this dog is jumping, as soon as they give that noise, play it one more time, whatever you want to say that noise is, that high-pitched noise, as soon as you hear that, go ahead and throw out that push, and that will send them backwards, and then just get in there for the kill. Sometimes they're going to get a little bit out of your range. That's where I love to have the Zealot Knife, where I can just throw one quickly into the dog. They're going to be stunned on the ground for a second, so you have that time. While she's talking, let's find our second special. All right, here is our second special. Oh, geez. What a mess. Got to have invisibility off. All right, so when one of these guys spawns into the map, oftentimes you will hear the talking before you see the bomber. It's pretty well announced most times. However, there are occasions where, due to the way that this game is like kind of not designed right, you won't hear that click-clocking noise until they're next on top of you. However, shoving them backwards is really easy. I see a lot of people, I think people that are more scared of letting them get in close and doing the shove, shooting them at range. But shooting them at range can be very dangerous for your allies who are going in for the shove because they're confident. So I encourage everybody just to let the burster come and give it a quick shove. And just like the dog, there's a very consistent and reliable way to always do the shove correctly. And here is that way. First, I'll show you just a normal. So what we're waiting for here is for that tick-tocking noise to turn into the, it's the fuse activating. It sounds like a release of psss, or a release of steam or something. And then the bleep follows up the little detonator. It starts to like flash really, really loudly. So as soon as we hear that little escape of steam or fuse lighting or whatever noise you want to call it, that's when we're going to throw our shove. Let's show it one more time. You see, again, this burster is not really anywhere near me, but as soon as that noise happens, I'm throwing a shove and it's still hitting them. Do note that you can shove backwards with other weapons than just the melee. You can shove backwards with ranged weapons. You do have to be careful because if your ranged weapon is more powerful than it takes to kill the thing in one hit, it will explode in your face. So, but if you're caught in a pinch, like in the clip we're about to show here, shooting them backwards with the revolver is very good. And do note also one more thing about this particular special. The Burster has a special type of armor that no other type of enemy in the game shares, which is they have an insane vulnerability to explosives. So if you have a grenade launcher, or you can explode another Burster or a barrel near a Burster, it will instantly kill them. They take 30 times damage from explosive weapons. So that's a great way to remove them at range, or if there's a parade of them coming towards you, just detonate the first one and make some space. So let's check out that clip of some Bursters now. Oh, he's behind that. That's close, huh? Too good. So some confusing things going on there, and it was a panic situation, as you could probably tell. We were pretty low on life, and our team was cut off from us because of our own questionable decisions. Now, what I first heard, if you listen back to that segment, what I first heard was the sound of the Burster being behind the wall on my left. So I was trying to look that way. However, then I turned around and saw one of the specials we'll talk about in a moment, the Trapper, sneaking up on me. I immediately had to deal with them, which means I'm not going to melee her. She's going to trap me. So I shot her to death. And then 2 Bursters rounded the corner as I pulled my melee back out, and I realized that just because of my positioning, I wouldn't be able to close the gap and shove them without one of them detonating on me, so I used my ranged weapon to shove the Bursters back. And I had to wait until I heard that sound cue. Otherwise, it would barely stagger them at all. So that is just me dealing with Bursters in a pinch. Now we're going to talk about one more special here before we look at another clip showcasing the dog, because I think this is a good clip to showcase both of these enemies together and how to deal with them. So this is the Flamer. And one thing I do want to call attention to, wow, are your legs okay, man? What the hell? All right, well, I've never seen that before, but that must be something to do with Nurgle's infection. Now, the Flamer, you can always tell when these enemies spawn because you hear that ignition, the spark igniting the flamethrower. Both these enemies, there's 2 different variations. There's a Scab and a Dreg version. This is the Dreg version. They both have the same damaging abilities, the same AI. They have different armor classes. The Scab version has flak armor, and these guys have, I think they're counted as unarmor except for maybe their head. I'll have to look at the spreadsheet and figure that out. But they both have the same AI. The way to deal with them is to strafe. So when this guy locks onto me, he'll try to hit me with fire, and I just need to move around him in a circle. As long as I'm doing this, he's not hitting me. But getting caught on something, you're going to pay the price for that. So the problem with dealing with these guys and staying on defense is they will fill the arena with this fire, and eventually you're going to have nowhere to go and you're going to step in it. These enemies love to come in behind hordes and spread the fire and make you stand in it while you're fighting, and that cannot be abided by. So we want to deal with them. They are very weak to melee attacks generally. I don't know why this one has these broken legs like this. They're very weak to melee attacks. You can also range them down, but if you need to melee them, which is the case in most situations, just simply strafing as you run towards them and get behind them, and then give them a shove and a stab, etc., etc. Note that when you come in close on them like that, they do have a really, really consistent and aggressive kick. So they'll kick you, and the kick is up again so quick that you actually can't. You'd expect to be able to get back to them. A lot of enemies will swipe, hit you, and knock you back, and they'll have a cooldown. These guys can kick so fast. I'm ashamed to say, but I mean, everyone knows I'm bad. But I've been kicked like 3 times in a row because I'm too lazy to like shove them or shoot them or something to break them out of that cycle. But just watch out for that swift kick. Let's go ahead and take a look at a clip to combine dealing with one of these flamers and the Pox Hound that we just looked at a second ago. So let's take a look at this clip. We're entering into the boss arena. There's a few specials to deal with in here, but I am listening really hard and trying to hear the ones that are going to pose the biggest threat. Right here, You probably just heard it. There's the howling of a dog in the background, but what I first picked up on was the noise of the flamer spawning in. They have a very high, sort of nasally, German affected voice. And then there's going to be the clicking noise that further lets me know, sort of locate where they're spawning. I know she's spawning somewhere right in here, so I'm looking at those spawn doors. And sure enough, there she is. So I need to get to her, but I kind of have this narrow, like, way of approach, right? Like I was just showing you, you can strafe in a big circle around, but you don't need to make a big strafe. All you need to do is when this flamer initially shoots at you, they're going to lay down a straight stream of fire. They can't start changing the direction they're shooting for about a second or so after they lay down that first stream. So when I first see her shoot at me, I'm going to move over to the left and pursue my course of attack around like this. I feel like John Madden drawing on the screen. Hopefully you can see my little tiny cursor. So now we're over on the side. And then I've been hearing the sound of this dog howling, and I just heard it for a millisecond before I paused the video, but there was the sound of dog feet, and we're about to hear a little bit more of that. And so let's play it for 1 second. Okay, I heard a bark, and actually right here you can see the dog, the incoming problem. Now, when I was right here, right there, I heard the woof and the sound of the feet. So as I was stabbing this flamer to death, I realized that that dog is coming probably for me. So I positioned myself and got ready. The most important thing was being prepared. And as soon as I hear the snarling sound, that high-pitched snarling sound that lets me know the dog is pouncing, I'm going to throw out the push. Boom. There it is. So without a second's hesitation, because I was ready for it, I heard all the audio cues that let me know that dog was in the arena, which I think is really important. And then obviously following up with the kill before the dog gets back on his feet and runs away. So very cool. Great way to deal with both of those enemies. Listening really hard for disablers like dogs is very important. Let's get back to looking at our next special. So one more thing about our local little friend, the noisy dog here before we move on. There is a particular way that we can manipulate the dog's AI so that we have a much easier time dealing with them. I call this the dog attack. So basically, dogs are going to try to path to us and get a certain distance away and then make their lunge. There it is. However, dogs are blocked by all sorts of obstacles. In this simulacrum, the pillars are the only thing that does that. Unfortunately, the tables don't work. But in gameplay, there's a lot of low obstacles that are only about as high as this little nub here that you can shoot from behind and stand behind, but the dogs can't path over it or attack you over it. So, if you want to deal with some other enemies, say there's some enemies in melee that are very threatening, or maybe you have a sniper or something that's pinning you down and you want to get shots at, and the dog is pushing on you, instead of having to time a dodge out here in the open, if you just put yourself behind an obstacle, the dog has to keep repositioning until he can get the lunge. So here, he's going to try to get a position on me, and I'm just going to keep him out of my sight. Now, in a lot of situations, I have a low barrel or something here, and I can watch him over there. And you can see it actually makes his AI take a little bit longer than you would expect to find a new position. And this is also a great way, if you're out of ammo or you haven't reloaded or something like that, to get the dog to come in close so you can get a melee or get a stagger on him and follow up with it. All right. Let's look at another clip. In this clip, we're going to be focusing on the mutant and not on the sniper that's about to die. Okay, so the mutant's about to charge us on the left side here. I have it muted because I don't want to hear my own second voice or the music I was playing in this clip. I'm just going to visibly show the mutant. Mutants are very, very loud. I highly doubt you'll ever be surprised by one, so the audio cues for them are not terribly important. They're also one of the easiest enemies I feel to react to. And then the reaction is one of a couple things. If you're caught out in the open against a mutant like this, right here on the left side of the frame, you've probably noticed him by now. You can just take the charge. Mutants don't do a terrible amount of damage. He'll run me backwards, and if he doesn't collide with anything, I think there might be some benches or something behind me, but he'll probably carry me out towards the open area. If there's no obstacles there, he'll slam you on the ground, or if you're an ogre, he'll punch you in the face a couple times. This deals damage to you, obviously, and it lasts a long time. It's really inconvenient to be pinned to the ground. And if there's a flamer or a firebomber nearby, it can be deadly because you take damage from the ground effects that are underneath you while the mutant is holding you. So that really, really sucks. If those two things are on the field together, you're gonna have a bad time if you get pinned like this. In order to not get pinned, as I just alluded to, you can position yourself so that you're next to a wall or obstacle. And that way, when the mutant goes to slam you, his AI realizes, if I slam him, I'll push him through the wall, and instead he'll throw you in a different direction. Now, this cannot throw you off of the map, but it can throw you into a group of enemies or somewhere where you're in a bad position. So do be aware that you're taking a little bit of a risk in doing that. But it's good sometimes to buy you a little bit of extra time to reposition. It also drops boss aggro. If they grab you and pick you up and grab you, the boss can't target you while the mutant's holding you. A lot of times they'll move on to someone else. So let's watch me deal with this first mutant here. And you notice I waited very late in there, and it's not even that close a time for the dodge, but I dodged around him because mutants are very weak to melee. I'm certain if you have played a ranged character, you've probably noticed it takes a buttload of range damage to drop a mutant. But for some reason, melee attacks do a lot of damage to these guys. So meleeing is definitely my preferred way to deal with them. And just simply dodging around and stabbing them in the back is great. Once they realize they've missed their primary target, he's going to hit the brakes here, and I can finish him off. Now, when I say they've missed their target, what I mean is when mutants spawn into the level, just like other disablers, like this dog we're about to see on the left, they have already chosen the target they want to go for. This dog was not targeted towards me because you can see he didn't pause there when I went invisible. He was already planning on running past me going towards someone else. So he's going for whichever teammate it is down here. Clearly not that guy either because he ran straight into him. And that whoever the disabler chooses, they're going to go for them. And that really definitely applies to mutants. So the second one's about to come here. I just saw him for a second over there. And instead of charging me or this other zealot, he's going to run straight past us because his AI is saying, I want to target this guy right here. So just watch out for that mutants and dogs and things like that have a target in mind, they are going to go for that target. They can change the target. Especially if you get close to them and their target stays far away, they'll change pretty quickly. But mutants can't 90-degree turn like dogs can, or bursters. So just beware that they are going to target someone on your team, and you can exploit that to your advantage. Especially if you can put yourself, like me and this other zealot are, on the path between them and their target. We get some free hits in here, and he ends up not even getting the hit anyway. So that is all I really have to say for mutants. They're not a terribly challenging enemy. They are only very threatening in combination with lots of other enemies that are going to lay down ground effects, and they're sort of a disruptor. All right, welcome back to the Thunderdome here. These are the next two enemies we're going to look at. I'm showing them together because they have exactly the same AI, as you can tell by their identical idle animations. They both throw grenades. The way their grenades behave is obviously a little bit differently. I'm certain that most of you are familiar with this lovely flame bomber. Now, when this game released, these guys were absolute cancer. The flame used to instantly break your toughness if you were touched by it, which was nearly inevitable because the first instance of damage you would take from the fire on the ground was not very forgiving. It would immediately break your toughness and you'd start to take health damage. So a single fire grenade underneath you when you were down to the ground was usually a death sentence. These guys have since gotten a nerf. That fire damage is nowhere near as powerful as it used to be. Also, when you used to kill them, they would always drop a fire grenade, which would oftentimes block, somewhere you need to be for a few seconds. These fire grenades don't linger terribly long. in contrast to the Pox Bomber. Now, this guy is the newest special addition to the game.
Stephanie will have more
Oh,
playthings,
Stephanie.
said Grendel.
Please.
Yes,
This guy's the newest addition to the game. He's going to talk over you. And these grenades, I think, the grenades this thing throws makes this one of the highest priority enemies for elimination. Because the gas grenades it throws out, they break your toughness. They add corruption to your health bar, meaning they can damage your health too, and they buff enemies that you drag through them. And they linger forever. So let me show you the difference here. Let's get rid of this guy. Okay. So this is our gas grenade. First off, our toughness is broken just that fast. And let's see how long this lingers. Oh, let's look. You can see that he is actually buffed by his gas because his eyes are glowing green, which means he's going to have more damage resistance and stagger resistance. The gas is still there, and then it's finally fading. So that was like close to 20 seconds. The real problem with that is like you can't fight anywhere in it. For flame grenades, this guy's gonna throw one on me. Okay, I'm taking damage right here, but well, these don't count, unfortunately. But most of the terrain in levels, let's see if this one counts. Nope. Most of the terrain and levels, boxes and things like that, you can climb on top of to get out of fire that's underneath you. And also notice these fire grenades linger for a mere fraction of the time that those gas grenades do. They also don't buff their enemies; they in fact kill their enemies. So I think the Flame Grenadier has fallen. His day has risen and fallen. I don't think he's anywhere near as scary as he used to be. And as far as dealing with these enemies, just make them a priority to eliminate them as soon as you see them. They're always going to kind of linger around at medium to long range because obviously why would they be coming into melee? And they're pretty easy to pick out because of that really loud ping noise that you hear when they pull a grenade. I don't think I need to give a whole lot of specialized techniques on how to deal with these guys. It's just one of these, and you usually have solved your problem. Let's check out the next specials. They're going to be the sniper. The sniper is a very simple enemy. He's got a big gun, right? And when the sniper spawns in, counterintuitively to what you'd think, the sniper actually has really loud footsteps and makes sort of a jingling, rattling noise. You probably heard it there. You can really pick out when the sniper is moving nearby. However, once they get to range, they're going to try to point their laser sight at you. And once they do, you'll see it jump on them in a second. Alright, and you can dodge this rifle bullet the same way you can dodge any other bullets in the game. You wait for the flash of the gun, and you dodge. However, once you break that lock on, the sniper will sometimes disengage, or they'll keep trying to track you. And you can see the sniper has a very slow base turn speed, just like our friend the Flamer did. So that's a great way. If you've got a sniper that's holding an angle on you, and you need to get close to him and melee him down, maybe you're out of ammo, or maybe you just really want to stab a sniper, give him a quick dodge, and close the distance over to their side. So that's generally snipers. Now, the real problem with snipers is sometimes they will spawn in a really bad location. They'll spawn like all the way across the room in like this little tiny corner, and you can't even see them. But they can get a line on you from an insane distance. And we just want them to get out of that spot and be somewhere else. Well, if you hide out long enough in such a way that they can't see you, they will eventually get bored and reposition, and that can be your chance to deal with them. So right now the sniper has me held down at this corner. And anytime now. Okay, yeah, there he goes. Okay, yeah, he repositioned eventually. Well, I think the AI is very resistant to moving there, but usually the AI will get bored of holding the angle, and they'll reposition. That can be your chance to land a shot or force them out of like a crazy advantageous position, like they can find in certain locations through the maps where they're peeking this insane shot. Snipers generally are not that scary, but just be aware that they are one of the few enemies in the game that can both break your toughness and deal damage to your health in one blow. So do not be taking a sniper shot if you can all avoid it. And just like all the other range attacks that we showcased in one of our last episodes, this one can also be slid under. So that's a great way to close the distance as well. But that being said, oh my god, I'm gonna have to delete this whole clip. No one saw it. No one saw that. Okay, and we're finally on to our last special. Now, this is, I think, maybe the most singularly dangerous special in the game, the one that is going to get you killed the most often. In a second, we'll be taking a look at a clip where that nearly happens to me. Not the not getting trapped part. I definitely get trapped. But yeah, we can watch how dangerous a singular trapper is if they're not dealt with. So the trapper is, first off, very, very noisy. And for a good reason, because she is incredibly dangerous. If she traps you, there's no way you can get out of it. It's not like a dog where other enemies can push the dog off of you. You are trapped and you require your allies to help you up, which means that you can get trapped and stuck in parts of the map that your enemies can't get back to. Like if you're dilly-dallying, trappers will try to pull you backwards and trap you where your allies can't reach. So first off, the way that these guys are on the map, or these ladies are on the map, are the noises. And I'm certain you can hear a good amount of them here. First off, that laughing is very, very indicative. If only they knew to stop laughing like that, they would be so much scarier. Then you can also hear the humming and the noises of the trap gun, as well as, let's have them run around. The noises for the running. I think it's the noisiest footsteps of any special, so they're really easy to follow it and figure out where they're at. And then, obviously, the noisiest thing of all is the trap gun and the net gun itself firing. Pretty much no matter where you are, this thing is going to be audibly boosted so that you can hear it. And what you'll see a lot of times in games is that experienced players, they don't even have to know where the trapper is. They know the timing for the dodge. So you'll hear a trap gun go off, and then everybody simultaneously in the team will throw out the dodge. And you can see there, I'm going to show you a few more times, the timing on that dodge. We don't want to be dodging right as the gun starts to make its wind-up noise, because the trapper can readjust her aim after that point. We have to dodge after the fire has already gone off. So right at the end of that, as soon as that chew happens, go ahead and dodge. At closer ranges, she is incredibly scary, so we really, really seldom want to melee her unless we're certain that there's no net in her gun. Because the closer you get, the faster your reaction time has to be to actually dodge that thing. And you'll see here in a second that I get caught at a close range, pretty close range, attempt to dodge, but I'm blocked. I could not dodge because there was enemies around me. And that's what makes trappers so scary, is because, yeah, on paper, you can dodge them all day, but in the reality of the game, dodges, you might be out of dodges. There might be something blocking you, terrain or enemies. There's a million different reasons why your dodge might not work or might not be timed properly. You can't always account for that, and a single trapper in the wrong place can end the game. So we have to be super, super aggressive about dealing with these enemies. They do have a very normalized way of attacking. Once they see you, they will run directly at you if their gun is charged. There's no finessing here. That's a great time to shoot them. Once they get close enough to net gun you, they're gonna stop and set up like that. And they have to be stationary to fire the gun, so they can't fire on the fly. So you can time it based around that. If you are a fast character, like I currently am, when she runs at me, I can run at her. And I can get there before she can let her gun go off, because she has to stop and set up. So that's just how you would deal with the trapper melee, but I highly recommend shooting them because the closer you get, the more likely it is you're going to get hit by a point blank trap that you have no way of dodging. And they are really weak to, pretty much every sort of damage. Do note that they, as you've seen there several times, she gets one net and then she has to reload. So after that net has been shot, that's the time where you want to be aggressive in getting them if you haven't already eliminated the threat. Let's take a look at the clip now. This is me getting kind of owned. Okay, so in this clip, I want you to listen really carefully as this clip starts. It's very hard to hear. Let's play it back again, but you can hear this trapper spawn in. If I had heard this in gameplay, I would have been much more careful to be looking to my right. Let's play it back one more time here. So you can hear right there. It's very faint and it's hard to hear over the My Chemical Romance, which admittedly was probably a bad choice if I wanted to not have this happen. But you can hear her say trapping targets or finding targets or something like that in her very distinct voice. So she's somewhere over here to my right. Now, gameplay me doesn't know that because I was so focused on all the awesome lasgun action. But I do hear her right here. As soon as that noise happens, I know I need to look to my right. And I know that I probably need to dodge as if something is coming from my right because I can see all my allies are over here. It's probably targeting me. So I attempt to dodge. Oh no. But I dodged to the right and there were enemies around me that I didn't know were there. So I was blocked and immediately trapped.
There was an enemy right there. That was the farthest pull ever,
And
too. Oh, I'm so
she
bummed.
pulled me so
God damn it,
far
dude.
away from my team. I am very upset in this moment, and I think for good reason, because I'm in a really bad position now. Getting me way out here on this particular area is very dangerous. There's a sniper up here. There's all sorts of gunners. I'm very fortunate that
Oh,
one
fuck
of my
me.
allies-
He yanked me so far.
Man, I'm mad.
They can say
One of my
it's
allies
a
has
stealth.
invis
Okay,
here,
okay.
but watch what happens to him. We're juicing up after that. That was a crook shot. He saved me. I had to save him. So he immediately gets trapped too because he had nowhere to go, right? He wasn't paying attention, and the trapper that got me got away. So that is the value of killing those trappers early. Is that trapper would not have gotten that second shot off on my homie there if I'd been able to kill him before he got me, or one of my homies had killed him before he got me. It would have avoided this whole situation. So we need to be super, super proactive on net gunners, aka trappers, out of all the specials. They're easily the highest prio kill. If you can get a shot on one, take it, because you are probably going to save your ally from a painful death in the short term. And that's really all I had to show you there. Just, it's all about that dodge timing right at the end of the charging animation, and knowing when it's safe to pursue them in melee and when you need to be on your guard, and specifically listening for as well, listening for the laughing and listening for the noises that initiate the charging for the gun itself. So yeah, a very, very bad situation. Thankfully, we pulled it out due to the heroic efforts of my ally there. So that's it for specials. Specials are very, very common in higher difficulties. If you are looking to raise your skill and get into Auric Damnation, or especially Auric Maelstrom, you're going to see a lot of these guys, so I'd get very comfortable with dealing with them. When you have the right circumstances and awareness of where and sort of what the specials can do, specials aren't that challenging, even in high numbers. But it is sort of the awareness of the fact that there are specials nearby, which a lot of times can be given away by their sound cues. It's the surprise specials that will always get you. But the more you practice against specials, the more exposure you have to them, which is why I highly encourage people to play on a higher difficulty than you currently are. you're going to get better and better at dealing with them even in a pinch. You can see, however, just based on that last couple alone, no one is perfect, and that's why as a team game, we all need to be trying to kill specials ASAP, because the sooner you deal with them, the sooner or the less time they have to mess with our teammates, who are inevitably going to mess up. Alright, well, that being said, I'm certain you can hear these lovely noises behind me. I'm actually going to turn my audio down a little bit for you guys so that you don't have to hear them quite so loudly. But we are going to talk about these bosses. Now, 3 of these bosses are pretty typical to find in the game and are ones you'll have to actually fight. And one of them, the Demon Host, is not exactly that. So we'll talk about the Demon Host last, mostly because I don't want this horrible blearing effect on my screen the entire time. But these other 3 bosses, 2 of them, these 2, are incredibly similar and not very challenging. This one over here on the left, the Beast of Nurgle, I would also not rate them incredibly challenging, but very much more annoying than these other 2. So let's start with this big boy here, the Chaos Spawn. A familiar face returning from Vermintide. The Chaos Spawn has a couple of attacks that we need to learn about. We're kind of going back to basics, sort of doing this more like I did with the elite enemies. So the Chaos Spawn has 2 main attacks, one of which is this crawling forward slam. Now that is all light attacks, meaning you can block it with your weapon, and it'll use this to close the distance on you all the time. The problem with Chaos Spawns is they are very, very offensive. There's not a whole lot of opportunity to get damage in on them. However, once you're done blocking that, they'll usually try for some overhead attacks like that. The overhead attacks that they have, that 2-handed slam and the fist slam, will break your guard and deal damage to you, so you have to watch out for those. Something that's kind of unfortunate about the Chaos Spawn's design is, for whatever reason, this thing has a huge hitbox. Not necessarily in terms of like attacking them, but when you're trying to approach them or when they're approaching you, notice that I'm actually being shoved backwards when it's not even hitting me. And there we just saw its last attack. But right here, it's pushing me backwards. And when it does that 2-handed overhead attack, it actually pushes me almost all the way out of the way. So the real danger with these guys is that they'll push you into a disadvantageous position or get you against a wall. And once you're against a wall or stationary in their vicinity, they're going to try for this grab attack, which hopefully it'll show here. Now there you saw, the grab attack is really funky, because you would think the way to dodge the grab attack is to go left, right? Because the tentacle's on that side. Come on, let's do it. But dodging left away from the tentacle gets us grabbed. I have no idea if this is a developer oversight or they're just sort of like 5D chessing smarter than me. But in Vermintide, dodging on the opposite side from the tentacle was the way to be safe. In this game, you want to dodge towards the tentacle side. So dodging towards the tentacle and laterally around, that is one of the best openings to get some damage. If someone does get grabbed, which is pretty common, there's 2 different animations this big boy can do. The first one, say you're dealing with other stuff and an ally gets grabbed, well, the ally is going to be stuck being held by them and getting chomped on. The Chaos Spawn is going to regenerate health from eating them, and your ally is going to take damage as well as corruption damage. So not a great outcome. It can be a great way to buy a lot of time because the boss is busy for about 10 seconds during all of this. But I think the preferable situation is that when an ally has been grabbed by the Chaos Spawn, if you approach into melee distance, the Chaos Spawn, instead of eating them, will sling the ally that they're holding around and attempt to batter you with them. And that can be blocked just like almost all of its other attacks. And then it'll very quickly fling your ally afterwards. They won't take any damage, they won't get eaten, and the Chaos Spawn itself won't heal. So if you ever see an ally grabbed up, go ahead and just run into melee. And it's also a great chance to get some free melee damage in. The only real time that the person who is actually kiting or facing the boss and the boss is attacking them has to do damage is when it goes for that grab attack. You can get some follow-up stabs to the back. But as far as dealing damage, not an incredibly complicated enemy. It's just like the next we're going to talk about. It has a headshot. Hit it in the head. It's got a lot of health. Eventually it'll die. Cool? All right. Let's look at the next boss, which is the Plague Ogre. Right here. Okay. So the Plague Ogre, he's basically the same boss. He has a slightly different set of attacks, but again, he's got a weak spot on his head and he's unyielding flesh. The way you play around these two bosses is very similar. However, this guy is much easier to hold in one place and deal with, which is why I think this is probably the easiest boss in the game. You can hold, if you have the attention of one of these bosses, you can hold them in exactly one spot and not move at all and kill them from 100 to 0 with very little effort. They have a few attacks, first of which is this Stomp. Now, that Stomp, you can either just dodge backwards out of it, or if you are behind them, the Stomp will not hit you. Otherwise, the Stomp will break your toughness, and it'll deal a little bit of damage to you, and knock you back. So, not a good thing to get hit by. They've also got Stomp again. See there. They've also got this 3-hit attack like this. Those are all light attacks, meaning you can block them. You can also just simply dodge them by dodging left or right. In fact, this is one of the most easily dodgeable enemies in the game. Hopefully he does his overhead attack here somewhere. We're doing more slaps. Again, more light attacks. Okay, there's our overhead attack. So that attack right there is the one attack that he has that is actually kind of scary. If you get hit by that overhead hard fist like that, it will break your toughness and deal a lot of damage to you. And that's the attack you want to be worried about. If you're stuck in a corner and he starts dropping fists on you like that, you're going to die. So staying in a situation where you can continue moving around and avoiding those, kiting left and right, is really, really important. Let's see if I can get him to do that fist again. Show it one more time. It's going to do the 3-hit. Those are kind of hard to dodge, the follow-ups too, but it's okay, because as you can see, they're all blockable. That's the only one that's not blockable. Alright, he has one more move, and I'm certain we all know what it is. If you're at a good distance, he's going to charge you. Now this is blockable. You see it did a good amount of stamina damage, but it doesn't actually break your block or hurt you at all. But it is also dodgeable. Okay, well, we're not dodging, we're no charge. Let's do the charge. There we go. And it's kind of a tight window, but it's not terrible. He has a really long cooldown after that where he has to wait before he can do any damage to you as well. So, again, I think this is probably the easiest boss in the game, and just because the meta is so established and people have so much damage, especially when we go into the crafting update, our damage is going to be even higher. These guys are really not that threatening at all. A single person, as you've seen in several videos, a single person can deal with one of these very easily. Alright, let's go on to the Beast of Nurgle. Which is somewhere here. There we are. Okay, so the Beast of Nurgle. This is our first boss that actually has somewhat of a unique AI. There's a couple of things about this enemy that people don't tend to know, and the first of which is how it actually functions. So the Beast of Nurgle is going to pick a target, just like a lot of specials do, and sort of pursue them, just like the other bosses do. However, the difference in the way it attacks is everyone knows about the attack that eats you. But why doesn't the Beast of Nurgle, oh, well, it'll eat me now. It's trying to eat me now. But let's wait a few seconds here. Right, you would think that if I got close to the Beast of Nurgle now, it would eat me. But watch, it won't. Why isn't the Beast of Nurgle eating me? And those of you that know, you know, it'll eat me now because I'm covered in the bile. So if you want to waste a Beast of Nurgle's time, which is basically the whole idea behind this thing, is a big waste of time. It has a ton of health and it's very resistant to damage. If you want to make it hard for the Beast of Nurgle to get anything done and, you know, just kind of keep it busy while your allies shoot it in its glowing weak spot, just don't get puked on. And as you saw there, when I did get puked on, I Can I get myself free here? Oh, I can just kill you. There we go. When you saw that I did get puked on, I just disengaged by running away. Because you have to both be covered in puke and within melee range for this thing to eat you. And that's the single most dangerous thing it can do, is eat one of your allies, and then it'll usually run them into a big horde of enemies and spit them out in there, and they'll get killed. While it's eating, you can break people out by dealing sufficient impact damage to it. So things like the Thunder Hammer and Crack Grenades and Ogren Charge and I might be forgetting some other ones. Oh, Staggers, like from the Zealot channeled ability. Those sort of things can break people out. So that's good to know. Barrels, that sort of stuff. So that's what you want to do as far as breaking people out. But I think the biggest tip I can offer for these guys is, one, they take very little damage to anywhere except for their weak spot, their head, and this little weak spot. I mean, their tail takes like a quarter of the normal damage that anything else takes. So just don't be wasting all of your damage attacking this thing here, because look, 395, a full stab is doing like 60 damage. Not that crazy. A big stab here, you can see the difference. But yeah, just make sure if you're the person it's focusing on, don't get puked on, and just keep kiting left and right. Treat them like a flamer, because they have a very similar pattern. They'll try to puke. And if you also happen to be a psyker with the bubble, if you put the bubble over them, they'll just puke in their little bubble, and they'll have a great time in there. So that's all the tips I can offer for the Beasts of Nurgle. And there's only one more boss left, and it's an optional boss, so I don't think we have a whole lot to talk about. But it's the Demon Host. So here's my tips for dealing with the Demon Host. Just walk past them. There's always a way around them in the level. Occasionally you'll pull one, but if you do pull one, just let whoever aggravated it get killed. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. No, I'm just kidding. As far as killing these guys, as far as dealing with these, well, they're guys, questionably. I don't know. I think they can be different, right? So these enemies, first of all, they are avoidable, but sometimes you'll want to kill one just to clear up the area. And there's a few classes that are really, really good at that. If you happen to have a burn veteran or Ogren, the Ogrens with the burn machine gun, they can absolutely eviscerate these guys in no time. They just absolutely get murked by those builds. But if you happen to be running a build like, you know, say I am, or I've got a revolver and a dagger, and I get one of these guys on me, how am I going to deal with them? Well, when they are attacking, let's show what that looks like. When they're attacking, they are very aggressive. They're constantly hitting you, and you can only dodge them for so long before they catch up and deliver a melee attack. Eventually they'll break your stamina, and they'll deal some damage to your health. And the whole time you're taking corruption too, right? The way to avoid this is if you put an obstacle between yourself and the Demon Host. Now, I couldn't get any footage of this. I mean, I could go get footage of it, but I feel like I'd be trolling my teammates about half the time. But lots of obstacles, the same sort of obstacles that block Hounds and those sort of things, are really great because Demon Hosts have problems with pathing. That is their biggest weakness. So if you have like maybe a small set of stairs, you can pretend like the Demon Host is a killer in Dead by Daylight, run up the stairs, they'll follow you, jump over the railing. And when you jump over the railing, instead of walking back down the stairs, they'll stand still for a second and then they'll teleport. And their teleport animation is how they close gaps like this. And during that animation, they can't move or do anything else. So when he teleports on me, I can use that chance to make a lot of distance on the other side of that. So you can see here, I'm just fast enough that he can't catch me by walking, so he has to repeatedly teleport. So we can keep him busy a long time by doing that. And if I had an obstacle, like a set of barrels or crates or something like that, I could put that between me and him and use my speed to avoid him indefinitely. And during that time, I can get a few range attacks, maybe some melee attacks whenever his attack cycle is done, and also invite my allies over to join in on the fun. Although that being said, like I actually said at the beginning as a joke, but I really do mean it, in most situations when one of these guys gets pulled, oftentimes it really is just the best option to let whoever pulled him just take the full brunt of it and get killed, because the corruption damage you can take from lingering in the vicinity of one of these Demon Hosts is pretty crazy. unless you have a zealot on your team that can zero out all of your corruption. I mean, you can see I've only spent a few seconds in the vicinity of this guy and I'm almost half dead. It just generally isn't worth it unless you know you have a health thing coming up. So whenever one of these things gets pulled by accident, if you know you have the damage to blast them away, or like a bulwark or someone on your team that can guaranteed take no damage from them, go for it. But otherwise, it just be time to make the sacrifice. Anyway, that being said, guys, I think that is everything that I want to talk about for both specials and bosses. I hope you really learned something today. I think that learning to listen really acutely for specials is probably, like, aside from mechanics and actually, fighting, is probably the #1 skill in the game that's going to make you a better player. It's just awareness of when those enemies are in your environment. Because if you can pick them out auditorily before you even see them visually, you're going to be so much better prepared to deal with them when they do come out of a spawn door, and you'll know which direction to look to. Anyway, I won't harp on about that anymore. I want to thank you all again for watching. I'm just going to do one more video in this series, and please, if you have any suggestions for like cool tips and tricks and things, like little optimizations that most players don't know about, even for specific classes, that's the sort of stuff I want to round out this mini series with, is just all those cool tips and tricks that can take your gameplay to the next level. So if you have any of those, leave them in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.